We can learn a lot from the Europeans in terms of how they are protecting the privacy of their citizens. A very high percentage of Americans come from European stock. They may have left Europe at some point in the family's past because their family wasn't doing as well religiously or economically as they would have liked to, but the values have not washed out of their family's history here in the United States. And in fact, polling in the United States says that the people here actually share the very same concerns that the Europeans have in terms of the impact that the compromise of privacy can have upon their families. I'd also like to recognize the privacy experts from the United States government who are participating here today at this important conference. My good friend Cam Carey and Danny Weitzner, David Vladek, Larry Strickling, Julie Brill, along with Jeff Chester, along with Mark Rotenberg. All of the people who are here are our privacy Paul Revere's. Paul Revere is the person who in 1775 said the British are coming to warn them of impending doom for the American Revolution. And today they are here warning about the impending loss of privacy and basically saying, you know, the Europeans are coming, but it's not a bad thing. Okay? And it's a good thing that the Europeans are coming because they are reminding us of our European roots. They're reminding us of the values which have been instilled within us because we come from that background. I also want to mention Julie Brill, by the way. And I'd also like to note the U.S. EU joint privacy statement released today. It does send a strong signal of close cooperation between the United States and the EU. As was noted, I was either the chairman of the Telecommunications Committee or the lead minority member on the Telecommunications Committee for 25 years, from 1986 until 2001. So all of the communications laws in the United States that were put on the books from 1986 until 2001, I was either the author or the co-author of in our country's legal framework. And that includes laws that ensure that your cable records can't be compromised, that your phone records can't be compromised, that your satellite records can't be compromised, that your financial records can't be compromised. And my own feeling is that these values don't change, that Americans want to make sure that as the technologies change, that the values do not change, that we imbue the technologies with values. In and of themselves, the technologies have no values. All of these words, including interoperability, have no meaning absent what human beings decide that they mean. We have to define these words. We have to say, this is what we mean as human beings. This has no meaning. That camera has a different meaning in a totalitarian country than it does in a democracy. We have to determine how the images, how the information is in fact valued. And I've long believed that privacy and the protection of personal data should be based on a fundamental principle of knowledge, notice, and know. Consumers should have knowledge of how companies use their information. Consumers should be given notice of their options for controlling their personal data, and they should be able to say no to the use of their private information if it's going to be used for purposes other than that which was originally intended. Knowledge, notice, know. And we're seeing repeatedly in the marketplace, whether in the United States or in the European Union, something gets lost in translation from principle to practice. That's why in 1999, I created the bipartisan Privacy Caucus in the United States Congress with Representative Joe Barton. When a liberal Democrat from Massachusetts, like me, and a conservative Republican from Texas, like Joe Barton, agree on something, you know that we're on the right track. And you know who we're isolating. You know who we're isolating, the pragmatic middle. You know, the middle always waits to see where the left and the right are, and then they say, oh, here's a good middle. Here's a good middle, you know, because everyone knows where the middle is, okay? But that's their, they make a living, the middle, waiting, okay, to see where the people who really, you know, believe in things are at, okay? So the bottom line is, you just have to poll this issue in the EU or in the United States. The United States and the EU agree on all of these issues. When we started back with the caucus, companies put together targeted mailings and tailored their marketing based on consumer behavior in the real world. Now, our activities in the online universe of the internet are a vast treasure trove out to reach out and to target us. The emails we write, the topics we search, the pictures we post, all leave digital traces across the web that are scooped up by the marketers, major corporations, and other data reapers that are often invisible to users. Our most sensitive information is stitched together to make profiles that are pure gold in the hands of these pitchmen. The Pew Research Center has recently reported that by 2015, Facebook is expected to account for 1 out of every 5 digital display ads sold. And the report says privacy is becoming a much bigger issue for consumers. Pew has determined that 2/3 of internet users are uncomfortable with the use of targeted ads. I believe that consumers, not corporations, should have control over their personal information. Google's recent change to its privacy policy tapped into this sentiment and sent shockwaves from Washington to Brussels and around the world. I commend Vice President Reding for her strong response to Google's policy change, and I've called on the Federal Trade Commission here in the United States to investigate whether Google's actions violate its consent agreement with that agency. Google should enable consumers simply to say no if they don't want their use of U2 to morph into U-track. European governments have long been in the forefront of protecting consumers' personal data ahead of the United States. I've always believed that the European approach to privacy and the protection of personal data was shaped by the continent's unique history during World War II. During the Holocaust, one's identity was literally a matter of life and death. It is to be expected that the Europeans would insist on a far more comprehensive and protective approach to privacy. The recently released draft of the EU General Data Protection Regulation sets a high bar for us to achieve in the United States, and I praise your efforts. You have established the right model for us to follow here in the United States. The white paper recently released by the Obama administration is an important starting point for strengthening privacy protections for consumers. There is no substitute, however, for laws that clearly delineate privacy and security protections for consumers and contain strong enforcement protections. Congress needs to act to protect privacy as a right. Internet users need clear, concise explanations of how their personal data is used and the power to control their own information. Many privacy policies, however, are constructed by armies of lawyers out of layers and layers of legalese. It's not surprising that most consumers never read them or don't understand them. You would have to be a lawyer with nothing else to do but to read these privacy statements. In her brilliant new book, Laurie Andrews tells the story of an online gaming company that put the following clause into its terms and conditions. Here's the quote: "By placing an order by way of this website, you agree to grant us a non-transferable option to claim for now and forevermore your immortal soul. Should we wish to exercise this option, you agree to surrender your immortal soul and any claims you may have on it within 5 working days of receiving written notification." The overwhelming majority, 88% of people, agreed to make and to hold and to commit to these make-believe conditions because they never read it in that privacy statement. This is just further proof that people simply don't read these policies. And while privacy policies can run into tens of thousands of words, many can be summarized in one 4-word sentence: you have no privacy. That's what all of these privacy statements actually said, if you were going to reduce it down to 4 words. All consumers and disadvantaged by long and opaque policies, but children and teens are particularly vulnerable. Added protections for this sensitive group should be included by stringent, legally enforceable statutory safeguards. We know that what we say or do online can haunt us for the rest of our lives. This is not right for a person of any age, but it is especially unfair for children and for teenagers. For millions of kids today, the internet is like online oxygen. They can't live without it. The internet is their 21st century playground. They learn, they play, and they connect with others every single day. But there is a Dickensian quality to the internet. It is the best of wires and the worst of wires simultaneously. It can ennoble and enrich, or it can degrade and debase. Our choice is to determine how it will impact on teenagers, on children in our society. Kids' personal information can easily be used without their knowledge, and it can be used to turn against them. Consider this: the 13-year-old girl who searches online for diet information, 13 years old. And then, because of this one search, she sees weight loss ads every time she goes online because some ad network profiled her as a young female interested in weight loss. That is wrong, ladies and gentlemen. That is wrong. The 17-year-old girl who could be denied college admission because he purchased a violent video game when he was 11, leaving admission offices with the mistaken belief that he's at risk of committing violence. The 21-year-old denied a job based on a photo she posted that included other people drinking alcohol when she was just 14 years of age. Facebook's policy is to bar children younger than 13 from the site, but Consumer Reports found that 7.5 million preteens were on the social networking site in just the United States alone, including 5 million users under the age of 10. Children and teens, 15 and younger, need protections from behavioral targeting ads. With time, youthful indiscretions can be erased or overcome in the offline world. It becomes forgive and forget. But in today's online world, these missteps may not be forgotten, becoming an ever-present online albatross that can never be removed. Unlike kids and adults in Europe who will hopefully soon have the right to be forgotten, no one, including children, has that right. And by the way, for kids 15 and under, the right to be forgotten is also the right to develop, the right to grow up, the right to make mistakes, and the right to then be forgotten what you did when you were a kid so it doesn't come back to haunt you as an adult. The right to develop is a very important right for children. And in an online world, that is something that we must protect as being sacred. When companies say, oh, we can't do it, how can we figure that out? Oh my goodness, that's going to interfere with interoperability if we can't target a 13-year-old girl because she's interested in diet pills. And the word interoperability is used as code for we're not going to do it, we're not going to give any protections. That is wrong. It is just plain wrong. And everyone knows it's wrong. And we must put laws on the books in order to protect it. We absolutely must do it. It is wrong. That's all there is. It's immoral to target a girl like that. It's immoral. Okay? And we have to establish standards which say it is wrong. And that's why I appreciate what the Europeans are saying. We have to change. We need to give the parents the tools to free kids' future selves from mistakes they may make today. In both the United States and in Europe, citizens are concerned about the consequences of government knowing too much about our personal lives. In America, there's a fear of Big Brother, George Orwell. But giving parents the tools to protect 15-year-olds and under is not Big Brother. It's not Big Brother, it's Big Mother and Big Father being able to move in and to say, erase this material about my child. Do not use it back against my child. Do not manipulate my child. Do not take advantage of my child. Allow my child to develop. I want them to get the benefit of using your technology. This is the CEO of a company, but you have no right to then exploit my child by then selling all that information to other corporations to exploit them. It is wrong. That's why Congressman Barton and I introduced the Do Not Track Kids Act in the House of Representatives. Our bill would update COPPA, the Child Online Privacy Protection Act of 1998. I am the author of that law in 1998 in the United States. But the Child Online Privacy Protection Act is the communications constitution for safeguarding children online, but it was passed way back in 1998, way back in the BF era, the before Facebook era. And just as the EU is currently updating its EU Data Protection Directive from 1995, the US must do the same with the Child Online Privacy Protection Act. Our bill is supported by a broad domestic coalition, including Common Sense Media, the National Parent-Teacher Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and many others. It also has 30 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives so far from both parties. And we're growing by the day in moving to protect 15 and unders. Our bill has 3 important parts. It would require companies to get consent from parents or teens before they collect information about kids. Companies should not be allowed to build profiles of children. Second, kids and teens should be able to delete their personal information with tools like an eraser button. Our bill would allow kids and parents to permanently remove their information if they've decided they no longer want it on a website or social network. Kids have a right to be forgotten. Now, you're going to hear from experts say, oh, it's so hard to do. Oh, it's going to be so complicated. You don't understand how the web works. It's just much too complicated. Huh? And it's the same, but if you ask them, can you build an algorithm so that my corporation can use data in order to spread it across the planet in a nanosecond? Oh, we can do that for you. We can take all of these kids from MIT and Caltech and Stanford and Harvard. We'll get that done for you in a week. But if you say, hey, can we help kids who are 13 or 14? Oh, you have no idea how complicated. But by the way, if the 13 or 14-year-old was a computer genius, they would hire them for $1 million a year in order to market to the 13 or 14-year-old. Huh? They'd give them stock options in their company. Let's be honest about all this. Huh? Oh, you have no idea how complicated it is. Whereas at the same time, they market how simple they can make it for you as a corporation, how simple they can make it for you as an individual to use these technologies. So, come on, give me a break. Huh? How do you say that en français? Give me a break. Huh? Yeah. I had a friend, Peter Showando, Hoffman Train Munster, in my French club a sophomore year in high school. Got extra bonus points if you wrote letters between the two of them. And I could not do that well. Okay, I think values translate well, but I think actually language is a skill. But if I could repeat what you just said, I would. The third, actually, let's be honest, we've moved from lingua franca to lingua internet. And the whole world has made this transition. Okay, and we have to make it with the world. We have to make it with these. Because if we don't translate our values into the internet language, then we're going to really have lost a lot. So, and third, behavioral marketing to children is inherently unfair and deceptive. Our bill would prohibit advertising that is tailored to kids' age, gender, and personal information. If we wait too long, an entire generation may be forced to defend what they posted, tweeted, and texted years earlier when they were only 10 or 12 or 15 years old. And that is wrong, just plain wrong. It just can't happen. We can all agree that kids and teens should have the right to grow up in a safe and secure digital environment where strangers can't track or target them. In the United States, we need to follow Europe's lead in establishing laws to protect privacy and data security, rather than leaving it to the private sector. And we should start with our most precious resource, the children of the United States. They may be only 20% of our population, but they are 100% of America's future. And we have an obligation to them, to allow them to be forgotten and allowing them to develop. That's our obligation to them. And so here is what I would say to you. That if you want to test the sincerity of what the United States is doing, just see how much response we can get from American companies on the issue of just protecting kids 15 and under while we try to figure out what we give to people who are 35 years old. And if they keep saying, no, we can't even do that, then you know that there's going to be a big debate in the United States. Big debate. Because while we wait to find a way to create a formula for everyone, we should not wait to create a formula for kids 15 and under. President Kennedy used to say that because we cannot make progress on every front, does not mean that we cannot make progress on any front. So I would urge the EU to say to the United States, let's create a common global formula for 15 and unders. Let's have a little side discussion over here. What are the rules going to be for children? What are they going to be for adolescents? Huh? And see what the response is from the American corporate rules. And if there is none, then you know the answer on the larger issue. You already know it. Because if you cannot create a safe harbor for children, how could you ever create a safe harbor for information? And that's what we should be talking about. Not safe harbors for information, but safe harbors for human beings. And especially safe harbors for children to grow up. So that's the dialogue I would like you to be having. And then every time you ask a question about 15 and unders, if they give the same adults that they give for 35 and olders, then you know we got a problem. If they give the same answer to the complexity of how hard it will be in order to develop those standards for children that they give to the complexity of developing for adults, then you know we have a problem. And you know that this is going to be a constant source of friction between the United States and the EU. So thank you for having this really important conversation. We praise and we need the digital revolution. I am the author of most of the laws that made it possible. In the United States, in 1996, as the Telecommunications Act, which I co-authored, passed, not one home in America had broadband. Can you hear me say that again? February of 1996, not one home in America had broadband. Within 5 years, it was Google, eBay, Amazon, Google, YouTube. Huh? And now it's words, names that are common in every home. But we haven't caught up yet with the values. So you need the one, actually, the revolution technologically, to spur the other discussion. How mature is our society? How mature are we in resisting the corporate pressures to say, oh, now you can't touch an invention, which was actually created by governmental policies in the EU and in the United States to unleash it for the benefit of the people. If we had to take on monopolies in order to create it, and it took politicians to do it, who said, no, you don't understand, we're monopolies, you cannot force us to move in that direction. When their successor companies, which we created out of that revolution, said, oh, you cannot touch us, you do not understand, it is nothing more than the same conversation with the same types of corporates, chieftains, who are only interested in making money. So monopolists turn into their successors, who then become what they have beheld in terms of the maximization of profits. And the only way in which we can ultimately call ourselves mature societies is if we put on the books the protections of the citizens of our people. And I thank you all so much for your time.